I never really like, obviously in this case is slightly different, but normally I like to let people make their own interpretations. The governing bodies, as it were, seem to think that people's own interpretations may be too dangerous. I think the song is really, in its own way, it has quite a moral stance to it. I mean, the whole hysteria at the moment about the word sex was something that I wanted to, I don't know, in my own way, I suppose it's making a statement about it by being so direct with it. The song is about sex, and it's about sex attached to, I mean, sex with a lustful approach, I suppose. I think that it's fairly obvious to anybody who has read the lyrics or listened to the record properly that it's written from the point of view of someone in a relationship with one person, and I think really that the fact that I tried to stress the idea of monogamy with the 12-inch of the record, and I'll be perfectly honest, I was expecting the BBC to ban it. People around me were saying, no, it's okay, no, it's obvious that it's not promoting promiscuity or anything. And I said, no, just simply the word sex. I know the BBC's taboos about the word sex. And I was expecting that. What I wasn't expecting was the IBA ban, which has made it a blanket ban. Yeah. Basically, no one gets to hear it within certain hours, you know, regardless of what radio station they listen to. And I think it's unfair because I think it's the first ban of its kind in a long time, and I think if I were not George Michael, then I would have no problem being played on those independent stations. And it's incredibly irritating knowing you have had a record out for a couple of weeks and that basically most people only know about it, they have not heard the record. Well, I didn't originally think of being in a band. I think originally I wanted just to be... I have to say this is parallel with wanting to be a musician, but I wanted to be a star. I think there is no such thing as a real reluctant star. I've never met anybody that was a reluctant star. You know, I mean, you get to a certain stage and you have to have done it yourself. Stars are almost always people that want to make up for their own weaknesses somehow by being loved by the general public. And I'm no exception to that. As a child, I think I really wanted to be loved by the public. I don't know why, but it was an ego satisfaction thing, and that was the initial push. And then as I got older, I started really appreciating music. So I was a very confident individual, but I wasn't confident to the degree that I could. I was convinced I was going to be a big star or anything. I was convinced I would be successful as a musician, as a writer. Because I was writing from very early on, I was always convinced that the material I was writing, someone else would want to make some money out of, basically. I was waiting to be discovered and exploited. Yeah, I was really cocky from the musical point of view. As a person, and in the idea of being a star, I really didn't know quite how I was going to do it. I thought I would just have to kind of wing it, you know. I think having established that Wham was going to be a successful group with the first couple of singles, I think that it really dawned on me probably after about 6 or 8 months that there was something really big to come out of it. I'd never really seen stardom above Top of the Pops, you know. I remember the feeling really, really well of standing there and just thinking, Christ, you know, I've wanted to do this since I was like 6 years old. I've watched people doing this, and I'm actually here. Well, the first thing was looking around me and seeing how crummy the studio was. But I didn't actually mind, you know, once I was actually up there. I think it showed in the first performance that Andrew and I did with the two girls that we'd been waiting for a long time, you know. It kind of all came out in that performance. The very first song I ever wrote, actually the very first song I ever wrote was when I was about 6 or 7 years old. How old were you when you wrote Careless Whispers then? I was 17 when I wrote Careless Whisper. One of the reasons that I can't actually relate to Careless Whisper myself as well as a lot of other people seem to, because it is obviously still the one that people come up to me and say, oh, Careless Whisper, you know. It's very frightening actually to think that that's the song that people refer to, and it's like 7 years old now. It's like, have I not written anything in 7 years? Yeah. You know? I often look at the people's different views on my career to date and views of me as a person at the moment. And sometimes I have to remind myself when I'm feeling extremely hurt by things I read or hear that I am 23, and I am still making a lot of mistakes. And God knows, I made some really bad mistakes the last 3 or 4 years. There are certainly parts of my career which I find very hard to watch or to listen to. But I do feel that people are they're very unwilling to accept that I am still learning, and that I don't really expect to be totally comfortable with my career for a few years to come, you know. I look at videos such as Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Snigger, snigger, you know. I mean, it's like,
that wasn't
it
that
worked.
bad,
I mean, it
George,
worked. I mean, as a video, it worked.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not talking about the record here. I'm very proud of that record as a pop song. But looking at the presentation of it, Andrew and I like camping it up like crazy. I look at it and it's not really me.
Now, Andrew received quite a lot of criticism towards the end of Wham. People were saying, oh, he was just living off your talent.
The thing was, we were having good fun. We were winding people up. The press loved the idea of the two separate entities and working them against each other, and sometimes, you know, making out that we were pals, and sometimes making out we were enemies. We just laughed our way through the whole thing. And when it came to an end, it was simply because musically I had actually had enough, and that I understood that from a musical point of view things were going to go downhill, because I was no longer, well, neither of us were teenagers anymore, and we were both getting a lot older mentally than perhaps we would have done in 3 or 4 years of like a normal life. But I felt, especially at that time, I was going through a bit of a hard time, and I felt already about 50, you know, and I thought this is going to be a bit of a joke. But there was never any question that we would finish the group before its a normal lifespan, because it was not a musical entity. It was an image entity. It was a group that was based around an image and music, but that one wouldn't work without the other. And the image had to be 2 young guys, you know, having a good laugh, having a good time. And when that became boring for us, it was soon going to become boring for other people. It was becoming slightly more mature, and also I found it incredibly difficult to write for the group image when I was writing much more personal lyrics, and it just seemed strange to have me singing such personal lyrics ahead of this 2-man group. Yeah. You know, there were lots of reasons for us splitting, but none of them were to do with our relationship, which was what was the best part of it in one sense, and was also the hardest part to see chipped away at by press and by people all around us, because it wasn't just press. Everybody was kind of jealous of Andrew, because Andrew seemed like someone who'd become rich and famous and not really done much for it, and he'd be the first to admit to that. But you know, the only real person I think that had a right to complain about that, if anybody, would have been me, and I was not going to complain about it because it didn't worry me, and you know, he was still one of my best friends. So when it came to an end, to have people all around us saying, yeah, well, you know, you'd had enough of him, hadn't you, George? Yeah. You know, it was very great too. I'd love to do another Wham gig in a couple of years' time.
Well, like the final one, that'd be...
Yeah, it would be wonderful. It would be absolutely brilliant. I mean, there are a lot of those songs when we were playing during the final last year. I remember thinking, the real sad thing about it was there were some of those songs that I would never play again. Yeah. You know, and it would be nice to think I will be able to play them with Andrew again. Yeah.